In the early 1980s, Ramirez moved to California, drifting through cheap hotels and abandoned buildings around Los Angeles. To most people, he looked like just another homeless drifter. All of California would learn his name: Richard Ramirez. The media called him. Welcome to Xfinity Evolution, where history comes alive and legends are reborn. In the summer of 1985, Los Angeles became a city ruled by fear. Every night, families locked their doors earlier than usual. Windows were checked again and again. Guns were placed beside beds. Police sirens echoed through dark streets while terrified residents prayed they would survive until morning. Because somewhere in the shadows, a killer was hunting. He moved silently through quiet neighborhoods, entering homes while innocent people slept peacefully inside. Sometimes he used a gun, sometimes a knife. Sometimes objects found inside the victim's own house. There was no pattern, no warning, no mercy. Soon, all of California would learn his name: Richard Ramirez. The media called him the Night Stalker. But behind that terrifying nickname was a man whose crimes created one of the most horrifying murder sprees in American history. Richard Ramirez was born on February 29, 1960, in El Paso, Texas. He grew up in a violent and unstable household where anger and fear were part of everyday life. His father was known for violent outbursts, and neighbors later described the Ramirez home as chaotic and frightening. As a child, Richard was quiet and isolated. But dark influences were already shaping his mind. One of the biggest influences was his older cousin Miguel, a Vietnam War veteran deeply traumatized by combat. Miguel told young Richard disturbing stories about torture, murder, and violence during the war. Sometimes he even showed him graphic photographs from Vietnam. Those horrifying images stayed inside Richard's mind forever. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 1973, Richard witnessed Miguel shoot and kill his own wife during an argument right in front of him. The screams, the blood, the gunshot, all happened only a few feet away. Most children would never recover from something so traumatic. But for Richard Ramirez, it pulled him deeper into darkness. As he entered his teenage years, Ramirez became obsessed with drugs, violent fantasies, and criminal behavior. He wandered the streets at night, stealing cars, breaking into homes, and spending time in dangerous neighborhoods. Slowly, the future Night Stalker was beginning to emerge. In the early 1980s, Ramirez moved to California, drifting through cheap hotels and abandoned buildings around Los Angeles. To most people, he looked like just another homeless drifter. But hidden behind that appearance was a predator preparing for something terrifying. Then the killings began. On June 28, 1984, 79-year-old Jenny Vincow was found brutally murdered inside her Los Angeles apartment. She had been stabbed repeatedly while sleeping in her bed. At first, police believed it was an isolated crime. They had no idea it was only the beginning. Over the next year, murders and home invasions exploded across Southern California. Elderly women, married couples, young women, random strangers, nobody seemed safe. That was what made the Night Stalker so terrifying. There was no specific victim profile, no predictable location, no clear pattern. The attacks happened in different neighborhoods and cities, making it nearly impossible for investigators to stop him. Survivors described a tall, thin man with dark eyes, terrible teeth, and a face they would never forget. As the attacks continued, fear spread across Los Angeles like wildfire. Families installed bars on windows and slept with lights on. Some residents refused to leave their homes after dark. News stations warned citizens nightly. Gun sales skyrocketed. Neighborhood patrol groups formed across the city. California had experienced serial killers before, but this felt different. The Night Stalker entered homes at random while victims slept only feet away. He could appear anywhere, at any time, without warning. One of the most shocking attacks happened in March 1985 when Ramirez attacked Maria Hernandez and her roommate Dale Okazaki. Maria survived after raising her hands as Ramirez fired directly toward her face. The bullet ricocheted off the keys she was holding. Moments later, Ramirez murdered Dale outside the apartment. The randomness of the violence terrified investigators. Sometimes Ramirez robbed victims. Sometimes he sexually assaulted them. Sometimes he killed instantly. Other times he tortured victims before murdering them. There was no logic behind the attacks, only chaos and terror. Meanwhile, media coverage exploded across America. Newspapers printed terrifying headlines almost daily, and television networks covered every murder obsessively. Parents kept children inside after dark. People began sleeping with weapons beside their beds. Even police officers admitted they were afraid. Then, finally, investigators caught a critical break. Police discovered a fingerprint connected to a stolen vehicle used by the killer. The print matched a criminal record belonging to Richard Ramirez. For the first time, the Night Stalker had a face. On August 30, 1985, newspapers across California published Ramirez's photograph. Millions of terrified citizens suddenly recognized the man behind the nightmare. And within hours, the hunter became the hunted. That same day, Ramirez returned to Los Angeles from Arizona without realizing his face was now everywhere. As he walked through East Los Angeles, residents recognized him instantly. People began screaming. Someone shouted, "That's him! The Night Stalker!" Ramirez panicked and tried to run through the streets, but angry citizens chased him through the neighborhood. He attempted to steal cars and escape, but civilians tackled and beat him before police finally arrived. After more than a year of terror, the Night Stalker was finally captured alive. His trial became one of the most infamous courtroom spectacles in American history. Ramirez appeared in court wearing dark sunglasses and smiling at cameras. At one point, he even shouted, "Hail Satan," inside the courtroom. But the evidence against him was overwhelming. Fingerprints, survivor testimony, DNA evidence, stolen property connected directly to victims. In 1989, Richard Ramirez was convicted of multiple murders, assaults, and burglaries. The jury sentenced him to death. For many Californians, the verdict finally ended years of fear. But the scars left behind never truly disappeared. Because the true terror of the Night Stalker was not just the violence. It was the randomness. Nobody knew where he would strike next. Nobody knew who would become the next victim. And for one terrifying year, Los Angeles became a city afraid of the dark. If you want to understand how history is unfolding before our eyes, don't miss what comes next. Revisit Xfinity Evolution for deeper insights and powerful stories. Stay informed, stay curious, and join us again on Xfinity Evolution, where the world's biggest events come into focus.